Aliens. British
Right. Sorry.
aliens.
British aliens. So we've
British
got a story.
aliens. We've got a
We've got a story.
story. British aliens doesn't travel
No.
around in a blue
No, 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 no,
box.
no, no. Not British aliens. A
Okay,
story of aliens in Britain.
aliens in Britain, but we're
Thank
not
you.
talking about a dude in a blue box
Yeah.
kidnapping teenagers.
Boo-Foons, mystery investigators.
Welcome to the Boo-Foons Mystery Investigators. I'm Dan,
And I'm Steve.
and today we are talking aliens, UFOs.
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery.
Now, last time we spoke about UFOs, we were talking about sighting in Suffolk around Boxing Day, and I believe today's story also has an UFO sighting on a Boxing Day. So it's like meant to be. Clearly, the UK tends to be visited by aliens on Boxing Day.
Well, it did in the 80s as well. Apparently, the 80s, there were more UFO sightings. It was like the UK was covered in UFO sightings and abductions and all sorts of things in the 80s. But then after the 80s, it started going down. So it went all the way up in the 80s and started going down again. And this is at the start of the 80s, isn't it? This story we're talking about here.
Yes, the first sighting and incident was in 1980. Yeah.
And this,
And we
did this happened quite close to? Because I know it was actually similar to the sighting we spoke about before, the Rendlesham Forest, isn't it? This is quite closely related as far as distant tighter. No, it's not.
yeah, it's well,
It was just no, it's just
roughly
a
with
sighting, wasn't it? Yeah,
yeah, it's
very similar.
sightings. It's similar in the fact of there was a separate sighting on a Boxing Day, and its lights have been seen. That's where it's similar, and it's in the UK. But
But this
anyway,
one had abduction.
we are talking. We haven't actually told people what we're talking about. It's
No, because I
Hebden.
can't remember.
Yeah, Hebden Bridge and the surrounding Calder Valley has a big history of UFO sightings, and some people online go as far to say that Hebden Bridge has had the most alien contact out of in the whole of the UK, and also the nearby Todmorden around the Pennines area. So there's quite a lot of alien sightings and stories around this little tiny area just outside of Leeds.
255 miles away from Rendlesham, so not very close to Rendlesham.
No, it's on
As
the
far as it's quite a drive.
yeah. We're sort of looking at the Pennines in the valley, where the A646 is, near a place called Lumbutts. Lumbutts.
Numbers.
And interesting, not too far away from where one of the doctors was born, because one of the doctors was from Skelmanthorpe, which is the other side of Huddersfield to where we're talking about today. So,
No,
aliens.
we
Yeah,
we
I'm
did
only
start talking about
mentioning
it
it
earlier on,
because I know we started talking about it earlier on, but I just
but we
wanted to
had to
throw
stop the
out
recording.
a little bit of information. I just wanted to throw that out there into the episode of this is where it's located. Yeah, so we're sort of
we had
talking.
to scrap everything, didn't we? After that,
Yeah,
we had to start again.
yeah, we did.
We did,
But we're
yeah.
talking north of Manchester, to the west of Leeds, and
Not
not.
far from Blackpool. You could go to Blackpool for a day out from there, couldn't you? Really?
You definitely could, yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
Um,
nobody lives there, so that's not very good for Blackpool's tourist trade. It's just aliens. That's it.
yeah, aliens.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So we're talking about Hebden Bridge and Todmorden, which is right nearby in that little valley of the Pennines of Calder Valley. Apparently, there have been several sightings of UFOs. And it all starts on the 28th of November in 1980 with a police officer, PC Alan Godfrey. So, PC Alan Godfrey was driving his patrol car when he saw what he thought was a UFO. The report that he's made says, I was driving a police car at the time, and in early hours of the morning I came across what I thought at that time was a bus that had slid across the road sideways. When I approached the object, I got within about 20 yards of it and immediately came across what I now would describe as a UFO. It was about 20 foot wide and 14 foot high and was diamond shaped. It had a bank of windows in it, and the bottom half was rotating. The police blue beacon was bouncing back off it, as were my headlights. It was hovering off the ground about 5 foot, and it was very frightening. Very frightening. I like the way how in his report he says very frightening twice.
That's how frightened it was.
Yeah.
Very frightened.
In addition, Godfrey had noticed that the bushes beside the road were shaking. He attempted to contact his headquarters by radio, but failed, so he decided to draw the object. He suddenly found himself 100 yards further down the road, and the UFO was gone. His boot was split, as if he had been dragged for some distance. Deeply disturbed by the experience, he was unsure of what to do until the following night, when he heard some colleagues talking about strange lights in the sky. He discussed his experience with a colleague who was a member of the local UFO Investigation Society. At his colleague's suggestion, Godfrey went for regressive hypnosis with a Manchester psychiatrist 8 months after the incident, and had several other sessions with different therapists, and his recall in later sessions was videotaped. Under regression, he told of the bright light stopping the car engine, causing his radio and police handset both to be filled with static, and how he was swamped by blinding light as he lost consciousness. He recalled being inside a strange room, more like a house than a spaceship. There was a large black dog. He was studied by a heavily bearded man who telepathically conveyed that his name was Yosef, who wore biblical clothing. Assisting Yosef were several small robot-like creatures, the size of a 5-year-old lad, and a head shaped like a lamp. Godfrey was asked questions, told that he knew Yosef, and was promised a later encounter. In spite of the potential damage to his reputation, PC Godfrey stuck unerringly to his story, and later even wrote a book about his experience. Nonetheless, it wasn't enough to stop West Yorkshire Force questioning his sanity. This led PC Godfrey to allege that there was a conspiracy against him. He then went on to leave the police force.
Well, that's about it then, isn't it?
Yeah, that was.
You wrapped the whole case up. Oh my God.
Yeah, well, that was just one of the incidents that have been seen. That was Todmorden with Alan Godfrey there.
So the thing about this Alan Godfrey case is what makes it very similar to the Rendlesham Forest one is we're talking qualified. What's the word? Basically, people who professionally are there to report things accurately. They're observers. They're supposed to accurately observe and report. The military was supposed to do that in Rendlesham Forest. And here you had a policeman who had only just the year before won an accommodation for bravery. He was very well respected. He'd been promoted, all sorts of things. Then all of a sudden, he had this sighting, reported it, and actually stuck to his guns. Apparently, even today, he still sticks to his guns. He didn't write a book until 2016 or something, so it took years before he actually wrote it down. He didn't make any money from this. He didn't sell his story. He was interviewed time again, but tried to distance himself from it. So again, it's somebody who didn't just try to make money from this sighting straight away, because that's always, I think, a way to tell if somebody's genuine or not, is are they actually selling their books within days of the sighting?
Yeah.
And he didn't. But you're right. I was reading here that he was discredited. He was basically forced to take medicals and psychiatric assessments, which then said he was unbalanced. And then they basically made him leave the police force, even though he had been dated, just had commendations just the year before for
Yeah.
being an exceptionally good policeman. They totally discredited him and forced him out of the police, which is kind of crazy. He also
Yeah.
reported Men in Black visited as well. That's another thing he was very, he brought up, was very vocal about, that people said they were from the government. They turned up in cars, which very unlike other cars you'd see in the area, and they were dressed in the same suits, and they basically were very threatening. Interviewing him, becoming very threatening, and interrogating him. So
Yeah.
yeah, he
Well,
describes Men in Black.
have you seen what happened to him 7 years later in 1987?
Oh, what happened?
So after that incident, his family decided to move closer to his wife's family, so his in-laws, which was near Ilkley. So just a little bit so not too far away from where this originally happened, less than 30 miles away. So he hasn't
Yeah.
moved too far. He's essentially moved from the west of Bradford to the north of Bradford. So they're now living in a little village called Ilkley, where just to the south of Ilkley, you've got Ilkley Moor.
Ilkley Moor Bontat, which my dad used to sing all the time on Ilkley Moor Bontat. It was just I'm not going to sing it, but he's all the time. That was his. We never ever went to Yorkshire, but he'd always sing that song on Ilkley Moor Bontat. Oh, no, oh dear, I can't get out my head still. We may have to splice some of that in here when we do the edit, just so people know why it sticks in your head and never leaves after 50 years.
Well, he moves to Ilkley, and in the early morning of the 1st of December 1987, he was walking across Ilkley Moor to visit his father-in-law. As he walked, he had planned to take some photographs, and he suddenly caught sight of a strange-looking being on the hillside ahead of him. The creature seemed to be gesturing for him to stay away, but he took a photograph before the creature ran away. He ran after the creature, and as he got nearer, he saw a flying craft with a domed top with a whitish square on top rise up from the moor and disappear into the sky. He was unable to get a photograph of the object. As he walked on, he noticed that his compass pointed south instead of north, and also that the town clock was an hour ahead of his watch. He caught the bus into town and had the film developed. The photograph of the creature indicated that it was around 4 foot tall and its skin had a blue-green tint. So 7 years later, he actually went on to seeing an alien.
So, I mean, this is where it gets, again, pretty weird with this guy, because I think he's certainly. What's the chances of having two UFO sightings that closely together? And I haven't been able to find it. Have you been able to find the photograph? Because I see lots of photos, but I don't know if it is real.
Yeah, and then what I've also seen is people trying to enhance it. It
Yeah.
does look a bit odd. Hang on, let me copy the link for you.
But this wasn't the only time. So this is two incidents, right? This one guy, Alan Godfrey, had.
There you go. I've just sent you the link over for the photograph of the alien.
And this would be after he left the police force, after he was forced out.
This was after he was forced out of the police force.
Okay. That's quite a good little photo.
Yeah, it sort of looks.
It's a very long arm. Very long arm. Knuckles would be dragging along the floor. Not very practical for flying spaceships, I imagine.
No. Kind
Short
of
legs.
looks a bit
E.T.
like
with longer legs.
E.T., yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 4 foot tall alien. So, photographic evidence says, or experts
And
say,
it's
that it hasn't been
bipedal.
superimposed. Yeah. It's okay. Doesn't show any resemblance to local wildlife, and it hasn't been superimposed, and it hasn't been messed around with. So it's a legitimate photograph of something.
Yeah,
But
and it's
very
now,
poor quality.
and because of this blurry photograph, this sighting is ranked as one of the top 10 most important alien sightings in the UK.
But why would an alien land in the middle of the moors and go for a stroll? There's not much there.
No.
I mean, it's not even like you'd be collecting wildlife or her. There's not much there. There's a few rocks and a bit of mud. So it's like the worst place that you would land if you were an alien. So it says here, after his encounter in 1980, he refused to recant his story, and he was targeted by officials who wanted to keep him quiet. He said it all started off with a black car coming up to him, parking up, say a black car that didn't fit in with anybody in the Pennines. Two men, pretty much identical men, got out of the car, both wearing identical black suits, dark formal suits. They basically interrogated him. They knew details about his personal life and his encounter, which he had not released to anybody. He says they were cold, clinical, and clearly intended to intimidate him into retracting his statement, which he refused to do. It then went to, he was then interviewed by the Ministry of Defence after that, who, according to him, said they literally said to him, "We know what you saw, but you didn't see it." He was offered a big deal to sign a version of the Official Secrets Act to actually say he wouldn't speak about it anymore, and he refused. Then after he refused to do that, he was then subjected to psychiatric treatments and medical assessments, which they decided that he was unfit on medical grounds, and he was basically kicked out of the police. They said it was due to pressures of another case that he had investigated a year beforehand, which is also a very interesting case. But yeah, so they basically scrutinized him to the fact he had to leave. The case that they said that he was unstable because he had investigated was in 1980, he found a body. He discovered a body of Zygmunt Adamski. Right, Adamski was found. It was very bizarre. He was found on the top of a 10-foot pile of. I'm just trying to find the details here because I remember what it was, but it was like a 10-foot pile of dirt, of coal or whatever it was. Okay, where's the details here? Yeah, there you go. Body was found on a 10-foot pile of coal in a coal yard. There was no dust marks on his clothes. This is the body. He was missing his shirt, his watch, and his wallet. He had a strange burn on his neck, which was covered in an unidentifiable gel-like ointment, which the forensics could not identify afterwards. And there was no cause of death. Well, the cause of death was basically that he had been scared to death. So this body, and that since then, that also is tied into UFO sightings. So the suspicion after that was this body of Adamski, who died, was found dead 5 days after he disappeared. He was 56 years old. It was that could also be linked to UFO sightings. So not only did he find the body of a victim who apparently very suspiciously could have been a victim of an alien abduction gone wrong, later the same year, he then bumps into a UFO, which he then claims doesn't claim, he then says he potentially experienced being abducted, because he says it wasn't 100%. He doesn't know if it was in his head. He doesn't know if it was real. But he just knew that he said the UFO was real, but the abduction, he doesn't know because that just doesn't feel real. So he doesn't say that it was definitely I don't know what a biblical dressed character would be, because it could be anything from a loincloth to a full Roman garb. It could be anything.
I would guess by biblical, it's that, when schools do a nativity and they get the kids to wear what looks like a potato sack and a tea towel on their head.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's that sort of attire. When you look at the Last Supper, the famous painting of the Last Supper where they're wearing the robes, I'm guessing it was somebody that was wearing robes.
Yeah. And also the name Joseph, very unusual name for an alien to take, isn't it? I mean, it is a name.
Well, it's the Hebrew name, which is we would now use Joseph.
Yeah. But why would an alien call themselves that? But also dressed. So that's why he's not sure if it really happened. That part of it happened. But his boots was, like I say, was scuffed. It's like he'd been dragged. He had time missing. all these other bits and pieces, but he just wondered if he filled in that bit with memories or false memories.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe what it is Jesus was an alien. So Jesus was actually a real thing, was an
yeah,
alien that wore those robes and just happened, in
there's theories. There's theories
just
of that.
landed and went. And that's maybe why he's got all these magic powers that can turn
Yeah,
water into wine and stuff, because he was an alien. Maybe that's what
yeah.
it was. There we go.
Well, there's theories. There's
You've
theories
heard
about
it
it.
here first.
Well, I don't think
That
it's first, is it? I mean, it's been
yeah.
suspected for years.
Well, it's I've just come up with it off my
No,
own
you
back
haven't.
that I haven't actually
You
seen. I haven't seen any of this stuff that you said has been suspected for years. So therefore, I'm going to stamp it as my own theory.
Okay.
Um,
Next week
yeah.
we will do all the theories of relating gods and religion to UFOs and aliens. Because the Star of Bethlehem, is a flying saucer, or Halley's Comet, or whatever you want to think. The angels, the aliens, all floating, coming down, visiting, glowing, and not human like, making virgins pregnant, which has been reported in UFO abduction cases as well over the years.
Yeah.
There's so many things that can be linked with UFO sightings. If you want to think of it that way, a lot of people think, they think life was created on Earth by aliens, so why couldn't they just then control the morality by becoming gods as well?
I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was the aliens. Just to quote that
Yeah.
famous meme. Anyway, getting back on track to this particular area.
So this Yosef character, this biblical dressed bearded man, and small robotic creatures were all uncovered under regression therapy. So he had hypnotherapy for that. So they only came out when he was hypnotized. So we got a man here, we got a policeman here who discovers a body of somebody who could have been abducted and died whilst being abducted by aliens. He finds the body. He then, the same year, stumbles across a UFO. If, let's say, it's real, there could well be that body was being monitored. Because of his contact with it, he then was a target for an abduction. And then there's no reason why he couldn't have bumped into it all those years later. Because if he's what was it? Who was it? Do you remember our interview with Sebastian? Yes. And he said, what's the common thing between all these sightings? And it's me. So is it the fact that he's seeing ghosts, or is it because in his mind he's seeing ghosts? Is it real? Is he the link? Is this guy? Is Alan Godfrey the link? Is there something that actually draws these things to him, and that's what keeps happening to him? Because he didn't make any money out of it until decades later when he started to sell a book.
Yeah. However, if we fast forward 20 years, well, 28 years to be exact, 2008, there was another sighting in the area. So 26th of July 2008, Gemma Kipping had some guests over at her house, which she lived in Todmorden. And the guests just left the house when they phoned her to say that aliens were hovering above her house. The aliens were yellow glowing balls that moved slowly and silently through the sky. Many others contacted local newspapers to say that they had seen similar objects. According to Chris Granger, an ex-RAF technician, the lights could not have been aircraft. They moved in a very erratic manner, did not display the flight characteristics of a conventional aircraft, nor did they display the normal lighting array of a conventional aircraft. Flashing white strobe and red and green navigation lights they were not seen, it was just orange. The mystery seems to have been solved by two girls who were walking their dogs, Amy Cheetham and Louise Neal. They found the remains of Chinese lanterns on their walk and suggested that they may have been the UFO sightings, which is possible because Chinese lanterns are orange or yellow in colour. They can look as eerie lights in the sky, and they do change direction depending on the air currents.
Yep.
However, it does seem around 2008, so you had the Hebden Bridge News reporting the Hebden UFO sighting, and then the Sun newspaper also wrote about alien invasion several times throughout June to August 2008, where the descriptions and photos were all very similar to what had been observed in Calder Valley. So orange, yellow lights in the sky. They do wonder whether it links into the fact that around that period of time, there was a bit of a trend for letting off Chinese lanterns at wedding receptions and birthday
Yeah, I
parties.
remember that.
So
There was so many floating around. Yeah, I remember all the
there were,
Chinese lantern craze.
yeah. I remember doing it for New Year that year. Apparently, you had to write on your New Year's resolution on the paper and then let it go, and then your wish would happen.
My New Year's resolution: I promise not to litter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was a sighting that was seen in 2008 that they think it was debunked because they think it was lanterns.
So apparently, in the Hebden Bridge area, they've had the legends of will-o'-the-wisps and lights there for centuries. So there's
Okay.
been reported all sorts of things happening there in that area. They actually call it the Valley of Lights, that area, apparently. So there's lots of theories that because the Pennines are rich in quartz and gritstone, so apparently when they rub together, they can produce earth lights or balls of glowing plasma. So
Okay.
that's how they suspect that some of those sightings, but also if there could, okay, let's go back to what I said. Maybe you're talking about the circle there. Maybe the UFOs are coming to charge on that
Yeah.
circle. If the ground itself can produce balls of glowing plasma, there must be energy in that. There must be energy that you can gather from the ground itself because of the geological makeup. Maybe it is the case that maybe it is a spot where energy can be produced for flying saucers.
Could well be. And what is this image you've just sent me of what
that image
looks
is
like?
it's of the flying saucer that he saw, Godfrey saw. That's of Joseph and one of the small robots.
Oh, is that his drawings that he did?
Yeah, yeah. So this is what he actually described them as.
Well, so to describe the image, imagine a 5-year-old has been asked to draw a UFO. That's the UFO in question. It's sort of a disc with
A
squares
chunky
on
disc, let's say a chunky
and
disc.
and lines across. It sort of looks like a weird flat screw.
Yeah, I must
Um,
admit, I have never seen a drawing of a sighting that somebody's produced that hasn't looked like it's been done by a 5-year-old.
yeah.
I mean, you could
However,
at least have,
the face of the person looks pretty good though.
yeah, it's got eyes and a nose in the right place. It's got a
Yeah.
hairline. It's got a lot of hair.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes me think that so the image of Yosef here, yes, the biblical garments is a robe.
it's a robe,
The
yeah.
hair sort of is who was that the vampire woman? Was she American?
Elvira
Yeah, with the
with the
big
big
hair.
bouffant hair. Yeah,
Yeah.
Elvira.
That's the hairstyle we're going for and a bit of a beard. That makes me think of early Star Trek and early Doctor Who when they went to advanced alien species. 60s, 70s sci-fi, you go to an advanced alien species and they're wearing robes. That's what that puts me in the mind of. And the robot, I don't know how to describe the robot really.
It's
It looks like a mannequin but with a line instead of eyes.
very short, yeah, very small.
Yeah.
No arms, no legs. Yeah. It's again, if you asked a 5-year-old to draw a robot without any detail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. We'll stick it on the website for sure. And on when we eventually get the video out of this. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's his sightings.
Yeah.
But there's no greys, there's no alien, it's a humanoid and a robot. So that's a little bit different to what we usually see with these UFO sightings.
Yeah.
One other thing,
Well,
though, I don't know if you saw it. Sorry, were you going to say something there?
well, I was going to go back to 2008
Yeah.
because it wasn't just that sighting. There was another sighting on Boxing Day, 2008, reported by Ralph Etoff. So,
Tough.
yeah, so he went online um, in a Hebden Bridge local forum to and he wrote the following, and this was written on the 27th of December 2008. Did anyone see two orange lights, one followed 5 minutes after the other, moving east to west directly over Hebden Bridge on Boxing Day? I am not suggesting anything like aliens, but it was unlike anything I've seen before. We did not note the exact time. I know it was roughly between 6 and 7 p.m. The first light actually descended into the valley near Mytholm, and then we lost sight. The second light appeared 5 minutes later and was travelling in the same direction but gained altitude until it went out of sight. In both cases, there was no sound and the lights were travelling around the speed of a helicopter. We were playing with a telescope I had just purchased and managed to catch a glimpse of the second light through the viewfinder. It appeared to be an orange point source. If anyone else saw these lights or can offer an explanation, please let me know. Cheers, Ralph. Delia responded. This is in response to Ralph's post. I saw the same thing. Well as you described last night. And she saw it on New Year's Eve around 12:10 a.m. They flew from the hill across from me near the school up Birchcliff and headed towards my house near the old fire station. I was filming the fireworks across and thought it was some random burning embers at first floating in the sky. I have them on film, but you can't make out anything, just orange light. Then I noticed they were travelling quite a distance and not going out. What was strange was, as you said, there was no noise. I thought maybe two microlights, then two hot air balloons, but as they flew over, I couldn't see any sign of anything like that, just two glowing lights. Has anybody got any ideas? Then somebody then says, sounds like lanterns. We get them in Dorset every few months, see this image, and it's an image of Chinese lanterns. And then we've got Mary saying, I saw this on New Year's Eve, and around the same time, I'd been watching the fireworks when I saw two lights rise from the ground in some woods behind where the fireworks were. They rose up and travelled against the light prevailing wind towards Hebden. At first, I thought they were flares, but they rose up, levelled out, and travelled along, weaving slightly. They eventually seemed to fade into the cloud base above the Mount Skip. This took several minutes. I wondered if they were a lantern or even some kind of earth light. They did, however, seem more ground related than other unusual lights I've seen in the past. And then Jack Hughes says, I happen to know that the New Year's Eve UFO was indeed caused by Chinese lanterns, 3 precisely, which were released from the vicinity of Melbourne Street. I suspect that the Boxing Day sightings were similar. Who knows? And then Jacob says they were sky lanterns. They were available for £19.99 for a pack of 10. Is this a reasonable price to pay to drop litter miles away from your home?
That's what I said about writing. I will not litter on my lantern before I send it off. That's my New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get Chinese lanterns really were a big craze back then. They did look very unusual when you saw them flying through the sky. 1982, Todmorden. Right. Okay. So this was 2 years after. It was about the same time of year as well. I can't remember exactly when it is. But, there were 3 consecutive nights in 1982 in the skies over Todmorden, and the surrounding moors, where people reported reporting it like a mid-air nightclub. There were over 100 sightings. People seeing clusters of multicolored lights, red, blue, green, white, pulsing and dancing in the skies. The movements the witness described them was not like standard aircrafts. They would hover for long periods of time, then suddenly zip across the valley at speeds that seemed physically impossible. Uh, so this came from all over the town, from all sorts of people, night shift workers, teenagers, local councillors. It was reported heavily at the time. And it climaxed on the last night with a massive explosion in the sky. So apparently on the third night, there was a massive ground-shaking explosion that could have been heard across the entire Calder Valley. It wasn't just a bang, it was like concussive force that rattled houses and windows in Hebden Bridge and Todmorden. So the police then sent out search and rescue the following day, and they found nothing. They thought it was either a plane crash or a gas main had ruptured. They found nothing. No wreckage, no craters, no missing aircraft, nothing. The military denied any supersonic flights or ordnance testing in the area. So there's also, then it goes back to the theory of it was either Earthlights, which seems to be the go-to because it happens. We know that
Yeah.
happens. We've seen it. So it is a fact, but doesn't explain, because usually they're just like blue glowing plasma. And it's quite amazing when you see videos of these things floating across fields. It could have been that. The explosion could have been a massive electrical discharge from the ground. Or something could happen and it was covered up. It could have been something bigger that was just covered up. No one knows. But that, again, was, well, they say people describe it as the Roswell of the North, even though there was no UFO as such. So this area is crazy. This area is crazy. Another thing that's local to that area as well is the on Stoodley Pike. There's a centre pole in Stoodley Pike, which is a 121-foot stone obelisk, and it dominates the skyline between Hebden Bridge and Todmorden again. So this huge steeple is there, and people don't know exactly where it is, apparently. So it's got like the Black Bones legend, which is a legend about the same place. And when the original monument was being built in 1814, workers uncovered an ancient burial mound containing black bones, which were noted as not being human. Local folklore has it that a single stone fell from the monument. Oh, sorry. Yeah, local folklore claimed if a single stone fell from the monument, the devil would dance on the hillside and fiery lights would glow from the earth. It sounds like a fascinating place with all these things. No one says where the bones, because it was 1814. Nobody kept the bones for DNA testing, obviously. Yeah, so it seems to be that Studley Pike seems to be the anchor point for these sightings. There's blue-white streaks flying across the sky at incredible speeds. And there's been so many witnesses. There's been a lot of abduction reports there as well, not just Alan Godfrey's, but there's been a lot of abduction reports. It seems an amazing, fascinating area to go to.
Yeah.
Ley lines meet there as well. So you got so it could be a combination of everything. And I think there's a lot more sightings than just that. There's probably a lot more than just those sightings there.
Well, I've just seen here that in the sort of rough area, so Howden Moor, which is actually closer to Sheffield, on the 24th of March 1997, two sonic booms were heard over the area and recorded at the time, although the RAF denied having supersonic aircraft in the area. And I've just found here a Freedom of Information request that was put into the MOD to discuss, to find out information about this incident. And the person that's requested the information has said the incident started around 22:15 hours on the 24th of March 1997, when numerous public witnesses reported to local police of the area that a light aircraft had crashed on the moors. This was well documented in the press at the time. I'm interested in the RAF decision to scramble Tornado fighter jets from 2100 hours onwards on this same evening to pursue an unidentified aircraft, which then crashed on Mangry Hill on Howden Moor around 22:25 hours that evening. I would like all files relating to this to be included. Now they have started to say, then the letter then says about, yes, this is a Freedom of Information Act, blah, 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 blah. You can find full records here on the National Archives website. But then it says, our records indicate that on 24th of March 1997, an RAF Sea King helicopter was scrambled to search a possible missing light aircraft after reports of an explosion in the Peak District. Searches took place between 23:25 hours and 02:55 hours on the night of 24th, 25th of March, and between 08:15 and 12:10 on the 25th of March. Nothing was found. We have found no record of Tornado aircraft being scrambled to intercept an unidentified aircraft at this time. However, you may wish to note that these events of the evening were subject of a number of parliamentary questions. In particular, this request here from Helen Jackson, MP, on the 7th of April 1998, which there is a link to, which just essentially discusses air defences across the UK. And then it then says, here's a link to all of the records that the MOD UFO files have been done. And then they've said, if you're not happy with this, please contact us. This thing. So the MOD did genuinely investigate that one, because they were led to believe that it was a light aircraft, but found nothing. But it links in with people potentially seeing UFOs and that sort of thing. So the RAF did actually go out to investigate and found nothing.
Or did they? Did they
Or
just
did
say
they?
they found nothing? Are we
Well,
going to see another document that's going to be released in 120 years' time?
Who knows? But the interesting thing is, I've just looked for RAF sites around this area, and not far away from Ilkley is RAF Linton on Ouse, and in the same flight path near Liverpool, you've got RAF Woodvale. So, and looking at those, it is a possibility that you would have people going. Well, if you had people needing to transport from one to the other, they would have to fly over Ilkley, Hebden Bridge, Todmorden. That is the route they would take.
It's a real flight path, yeah.
So it is on a flight path between two RAF bases. So again, that's another possibility.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking here as well, the sort of the legends around Hebden, what happened before UFOs. So it has its own white lady ghost, the ghost of Lum Falls. I can't remember if we spoke. I don't think we spoke about that one. But another white ladies were frequently reported near the waterfall. Legend says she is a daughter of a family that owned the nearby mill, the Lum Bank, and after a forbidden romance ended in tragedy, she either fell or threw herself from the rocks. Again, another one. The site and local officers report seeing a pale shimmering figure stand at the top of the falls while wandering the woods of the crags, vanishing as soon as someone tries to approach her. Then you got Tom Bell's Cave, which is another hidden labyrinth of caves associated with the outlaw Tom Bell, 19th century thief, reporting wore his boots backwards to confuse the authorities. That sounds quite cool. And of course, the 80s, like I said, there was so much of it. There was so many sightings, so many abductions was a big thing. Cattle mutilation was a big thing in America. And over here as well, crop circles were very big, at the height in the 80s. So, it was a strange time. That's when I remember. That's when I became fascinated with it, with UFO sightings, abductions, ghost stories. That was it. It was everything was supernatural, paranormal, UFOs, aliens. But it is a strange story, and one because of who he was, how respected he was, and what a good, reliable policeman he was. It adds so much credibility to it. And the fact he didn't profit from it at all. In fact, the opposite.
Yeah.
That's where you got to think of the credibility of these things. So, I mean, we just said about that the disco lights in the sky for 3 nights, reported by hundreds of people, ending with an explosion without any witnesses or without any evidence of anything. There's hundreds of people can't imagine stuff like that, and if you couldn't be, now we can say it was drones flashing disco lights across the sky, zipping all over the place. That could be drones, but not in 1980 or 82, whatever it was, 84, 87.
I think it's probably time to say our usual of, do check out our social media pages, do check out the website for extra information, and do sign up to our Patreon for bonus content, such as the full unedited video version of today's episode. So thank you for being here this week.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm very sorry we didn't do anything inappropriate this week.
Yeah, you'll have to come back on Saturday for inappropriate stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Thank
when
you.
we sort of go off the rails a bit.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So for those of you who like our madness, come back on Saturday. For those of you who don't like the madness and just like the mysteries, we'll come back next Wednesday for another mystery.
Oh, do you know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to email Alan seeing if he wants to come on the show.
Boo-Foons, mystery investigators.